So today I've got a little bit of a different kind of video with Lewis Hamilton winning his 7th world title at the Turkish Grand Prix last time out. I thought it would be quite interesting to look back at his career and look back at those 7 world titles and rank them from worst to best. Now, obviously this is going to be highly subjective and it's going to be from my point of view. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think in the comments below. But one thing I do have to say is that I kind of shot myself in the foot by naming this video, ranking Lewis Hamilton's 7 world titles from worst to best, because there really is no such thing as a worst world title. At the end of the day, every single championship that any driver wins is going to come with different circumstances, different teams. It's going to require a different kind of season, maybe even a different kind of driving style depending on the regulations. So that is why I thought it would be quite an interesting video idea to rank Lewis Hamilton's 7 world titles from worst to best, in my opinion. Now guys, don't forget, if you do enjoy the content on my channel, then don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and don't forget to check out my social medias. Instagram and Twitter will be above. But yeah guys, let's get into it. So to kick off the list, in 7th place, I've got the 2015 season, his 3rd season at Mercedes and the 2nd season in the hybrid era, or the Mercedes dominance era as we kind of know it today. Now, why do I consider 2015 Lewis Hamilton's quote-unquote worst world championship? Well, I mean, certainly it's not because of a lack of trying. I mean, in that season, he managed to get 10 wins and 11 pole positions, so absolutely crazy stats for anyone to achieve in just one season. But I think the reason why I rank that as Lewis's lowest is because of the challenge that Nico Rosberg, or lack of challenge that Nico Rosberg provided over the course of that season. Nico was really off his game. I think it might have been a bit of a hangover over 2014 and a really close title battle, which we'll get to a little bit later on. But, Lewis didn't do anything wrong in 2015. Again, 10 wins, 11 poles, that's just incredible. And I think his strongest performance was at the Italian Grand Prix that year, where he managed to get a Grand Slam of pole, fastest lap, and then leading every single lap from start to finish. So that is no joke. But nevertheless, there wasn't really much of a title fight as such from Nico Rosberg. And I think that is why I kind of rank it a little bit lower. And another reason why, because it might seem a little bit strange, Lewis didn't do anything wrong, so why do I rank it as his worst, is actually what happened after he did win the title. Because when he wrapped up the title at the USA Grand Prix in 2015 with a race win, becoming a 3-time world champion, for the remaining 4 races, Lewis Hamilton really dropped the ball. Maybe he got complacent, I don't know, maybe he kind of just checked out. He thought, I've just won my title, see you guys next year. And what happened in those remaining 4 races is that Nico Rosberg, in every single one of them, got pole position and converted it into a race win. The reason why that is so important is because going into next year, Nico Rosberg continued that trend by getting 4 wins in the first 4 races of 2016, which is of course the year that he won the title. So maybe if Lewis Hamilton didn't kind of put his foot off the gas in 2015 and continue to, win beyond winning his world title, maybe Nico doesn't have that great start in 2016, which of course ends up with him winning the title. So that is why I kind of quote unquote put it as his worst ever world championship. But again, he was phenomenal that year, but he kind of took his foot off the gas in the last little part of the season, and maybe it affected his chances of getting another championship in 2016. So yeah, in 7th place, I've got the 2015 season. So coming in 6th place, I've got the 2019 season. Now, once again, it was a totally just stacked season in terms of results for Lewis Hamilton. He got 11 wins, but only 5 pole positions, so maybe slacking a little bit. But in that year, obviously Mercedes did have the best car, but Ferrari certainly had a great car in qualifying. It wasn't as good in the races, and hence they weren't properly able to kind of challenge for the title against Lewis Hamilton. Red Bull also just weren't quite there as well, of course, in the first year with Honda. And as far as Valtteri Bottas, giving Lewis Hamilton a title battle, it only really lasted for like the first third of the season. So I felt like it was one of the easier championships that Lewis had to win. But nevertheless, Lewis Hamilton, after all of the kind of hiccups in the early part of his career, he just does not let go. In 2019, yet again, it might have been a little bit of a weaker season from Valtteri in the second half of the year, even though he did get a few wins there and there. Lewis dominated the championship pretty much from start to finish, and especially after, I think it was the French Grand Prix or something, it was just lights out from there. Lewis ended up winning it, I think, at the, of course, the American Grand Prix in Austin. And yeah, it was one of the weaker seasons, I think, in terms of a real title battle, but nevertheless, Lewis did his thing, as he always does, in the best car, because at the end of the day, even if you are given the best car, it's still your job to just bash out those wins, get those massive results. And again, 11 wins, despite what happened on the Saturday, not being his best year in terms of qualifying, but nevertheless, there wasn't a massive title battle, so I've got it ranked in 6th place. But again, it was a great performance by both him and Mercedes as he won his 6th world championship. Now, coming in at number 5, I've got the 2020 season, of course, the season we're at right now, where, of course, he has won his 7th world champion. Now, so far this year, with 3 races to go, as I'm recording this video, he has managed to get 10 wins and 9 pole positions. So that's kind of why I judge it a little bit above 2019. And to be honest, there's a lot of parallels that I draw between 2019 and 2020. And I feel like as a driver, he's been stronger this year, especially in qualifying. So that's why I kind of rate it a little bit over 2019. I think when you look at the season as a whole, and again, we do have still 3 races to go, so no doubt Lewis Hamilton might still get a few more wins and pole positions. I've no doubt about that, especially with the tracks that we're going to. But nevertheless, I feel like this season ranks above 2019 because overall, not only did he improve during qualifying, and of course 9 pole positions instead of 5 compared to last year in a shortened season as well, despite, you know, less competition from Red Bull and Ferrari. I feel like with everything going on in 2020, with him being at the forefront of a push for diversity in Formula 1, with matching Michael Schumacher's win tally at Portimao and breaking all of these records, all of these significant things for Formula 1's history, with everything going on, I think it just means a little bit more than 2019. And I also think that overall he's just been a little bit more of a consistent and faster driver compared to 2019, especially over qualifying. So yeah, this is why I think it goes just above 2019, but nevertheless, again, not a massive title challenge from Valtteri Bottas, sadly. And obviously Red Bull and Ferrari, well, they definitely didn't turn up, especially Ferrari. So again, it's been another season where Lewis Hamilton has basically been flawless. A few little mistakes, like, you know, with Alexander Albon, a few little yellow flag incidents where he got a few penalties, but other than that, he's been absolutely flawless. He's done exactly what he needs to do, and he's took advantage of his very good car, because Lewis Hamilton, especially now in his later Mercedes years, he never takes good cars for granted. So yeah, I think 2020 has been a great season, but certainly in my opinion, not one of his absolute greatest, but nevertheless, still a fantastic season in which, of course, he managed to equal Michael Schumacher by winning his 7th world title. Now, coming in at number 4, I've got 2014. Now, the reason why I think that this season it certainly ranks above the others is, you know, not arguably because Lewis was a better driver in that season, because I definitely think that in 2019 and 20, Lewis was a much better driver than he was in the very early hybrid era, but it was what this season meant. In 2014, in terms of the stats, he managed to get 11 wins and 7 pole positions against his arch rival and, of course, teammate Nico Rosberg. And again, it's the emotional aspect of what this season meant, you know, leaving McLaren and only in his 2nd ever season for Mercedes, managing to fight for a title and win it in the title decider. It was also a very up and down season as well for Lewis Hamilton in terms of an emotional roller coaster. He did make a few mistakes and definitely had some bad luck at some points as well with reliability, which actually meant that Nico built a pretty sizable advantage going into kind of the midway point of the season around Spa. And of course, they also had a few little clashes like at Spa. So there was a lot of things that were going against Lewis Hamilton, and he really did feel, you know, there was a lot of interviews where he said that he just maybe thought that this was not his year, but yet he managed to dig deep and made a massive push for the title in the second half of the season and managed to go into a title decider. And in that final race, he was absolutely granite, getting an amazing first kind of jump off the line, jumping Nico Rosberg, who had managed to get a pole, and then securing his 2nd world title and his first for Mercedes. I mean, what a year, what a season, by the way. 2014 was a really great title fight between Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, and that is why I rate it above some of the others, because of the emotional aspect of his first for Mercedes, what it meant at the time, certainly in terms of the Rosberg and Hamilton rivalry. So yeah, 2014 was a great championship from Lewis, a really good fight back, especially after a few little issues midway through the season. So yeah, in 4th place, I've got 2014. So now we are into the top 3, and in 3rd place, I've got 2017. Now, what a massive season. What a great season as well, actually. In terms of the stats, Lewis Hamilton, he did what he did, you know, 9 wins, 11 poles, you know, pretty decent. But the reason why I've got this season up in 3rd place is because of everything that was going on at the time and everything that Lewis Hamilton had to go up against, because it was a brand new challenge at the time, with Ferrari finally coming back with Sebastian Vettel with a great car. And the interesting thing is, you know, looking back, a lot of people are saying that the Ferrari had no chance at the 2017 world title. But what's really interesting is that if you actually watched that season, there was a lot of ex-drivers, especially on Sky. I remember Damon Hill, they were arguing which car was better, and there were 2 very different cars, the Ferrari and the Mercedes. But a lot of people actually thought the Ferrari was the better car that year, because the Mercedes was a bit of a diva. It was very difficult to drive in the early part of the season, and Lewis Hamilton especially, and the Mercedes team was still trying to figure it out, especially in the first half of 2017. So it wasn't quite kind of, you know, as straightforward as many people kind of think, especially looking back at just the results on Wikipedia or something. At the time, it was a very close fight between Mercedes and Ferrari, and we got to see an incredible battle between Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel, especially in the early half of the season, and all of the kind of psychological warfare going on between those two, with some pretty spicy incidents happening between Lewis and Seb. So yeah, there was so much going on. Sadly, Seb wasn't able to carry on that title battle into a title decider or anything really kind of close towards the end of the season due to some mistakes and some reliability issues as well. So that's what I think kind of puts it below the top two. But nevertheless, with Nico Rosberg leaving the team, Lewis getting a brand new teammate, there's a brand new challenge right there. The new regulations in 2017, there was just so much kind of unknown that season. But in the end, I think the biggest reason why 2017 ranks as one of his best is because, and I've talked about this on my channel before actually, so definitely go check that video out. I'll have it linked below. But in 2017, Lewis Hamilton went to a brand new level. He went to a brand new prime, in my opinion. He was better than ever, and that is why he was able to get into Sebastian Vettel's head and just dominate the championship, looking back at the results. But really, at the start of the season, it was a close battle, and Lewis Hamilton in the end came out on top and looked better than ever. So yeah, in third place is 2017. So we are into the top two, and in second place, I've got the 2008 season. Now, in that year, he managed to get 5 wins and 7 pole positions, which, although might seem a little bit kind of measly compared to his monster Mercedes numbers, of course, there was a lot more title challenges at the time. There was the likes of Felipe Massa. It was a very good fight between those two. Kimi Raikkonen was still there at Ferrari, so there was more people at the time challenging for the title, but in the end, it did come down to Lewis Hamilton versus Felipe Massa, and of course, we know in one of the most famous title deciders of all time, I think I read somewhere, by the way, that the 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix was the most watched race of all time in Formula 1. So it just shows, what kind of box office appeal Lewis Hamilton had even back then against Felipe Massa. Now, in terms of the emotional value, I feel like this is easily maybe, first or second, because of course it was his first world title, his one and only for McLaren. But as a driver, in terms of driving standards, I actually would argue that this is probably one of his worst, because he was nowhere near the driver that he is today. Lewis Hamilton, over the course of his career, and especially now, his speed and consistency, his Formula 1 IQ, that is what has developed so much over the course of his career. Back then, he was still very raw. He had that raw talent, that raw pace, and of course the racecraft in wheel-to-wheel combat, but his Formula 1 IQ, his understanding of when to go for a move and when to not, understanding the tires and everything that he's learned along the way, he developed, and he didn't quite have it back then, but nevertheless, it was still such an amazing season, a great battle, of course, a great final race as well. One of the most kind of biggest moments in Formula 1, the whole, is that Glock. So much iconic stuff happened in 2008. It was a really great title battle in the end. A lot of people would argue that Felipe Massa was actually the better driver that season, and there is certainly a great argument for that. So yeah, in terms of driving standards, that wasn't Lewis's best, but the emotional value, his first for McLaren and what it meant at the time, and only his second ever season, from where he came from as well, being signed by McLaren, I think at the age of like 13 or something, by Ron Dennis. So yeah, 2008, more so emotionally than Lewis's actual driving, for what it meant at the time, also idolizing Senna as a kid and being with McLaren since the age of 13 and managing to deliver them a title. I think that is why I've put 2008 in second place, because it was a massive moment, not just for Lewis Hamilton, but also Formula 1. So yeah, in second place, I've got the 2008 season. So we have 6 down and 1 to go, and taking the top spot as, in my opinion, the greatest Lewis Hamilton championship of all time is the 2018 title. Now, again, it was another crazy season in terms of stats for Lewis and Mercedes. 11 wins, 11 poles for Lewis Hamilton, all of that kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. We've heard it all before. A great season for Lewis. But why do I think that 2018 is that one season that stands out to me, in my opinion, as the greatest Lewis Hamilton season? Well, to be honest, it's down to one simple fact, and that is the fact that in 2018, Ferrari and Mercedes were absolutely just on equal ground in terms of cars. Lewis Hamilton, no one can ever say that Lewis Hamilton can only win in a dominant Mercedes, because in 2018, and I've said this multiple times, Ferrari had the better car, just in my opinion, but it was so negligible that it was always going to come down to the driver, in my opinion. And Lewis Hamilton was as on top of his game as I've ever seen him. He went on a crazy run after the German Grand Prix. I think in something like 7 races, he won 6 of them and got second in the other. So yeah, he absolutely dominated that season towards the end. And that is why, for all of those reasons, not only was he on top of his game in terms of driving, not only did he win the psychological battle with, of course, Sebastian Vettel, who crashed out and started having all those spins because of the pressure that both obviously Ferrari, but more so Lewis Hamilton put on him because of the title battle. Lewis was just on top of his game in 2018. He proved beyond doubt that he doesn't always need a car that is just 1 second quicker than everyone else. He was the best driver that year, and that is why, in my opinion, he just proved everyone wrong. He just silenced all the critics, and that is why 2018, in my opinion, is Lewis Hamilton's greatest ever world championship. Well guys, there you go. That is my video ranking Lewis Hamilton's 7 world titles. Now, let me know in the comments below, do you think I've absolutely just knocked it out of the park and got it 100% right? Or do you think I've had an absolute shocker? Let me know in the comments below, guys. And also let me know your list as well, ranking Lewis Hamilton's 7 world championship seasons. Now, I hope you did enjoy this video. And if you did, then don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button. And don't forget to check out my social medias. Instagram and Twitter will be above. And guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.